Time has arrived. It is our first Saturday of college football in 2025. Welcome back to Picks and Roll, DFS, powered by Betr. Here, our mission is simple. Make the picks, build the roll. And because today's a special day, we're moving into college football. I've got 3 plays I love for Saturday, August 23rd, and we're going to back them with last season's data, projections, and where the lines sit across the market. Remember to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe so that you can get picks just like this all year. All right, let's get into our first pick for today. We have Jerron Tibbs going lower than 33.5 receiving yards. All right, we can see here the last 10 games of the 2024 season. He went below this line 6 out of 10 times with an average of 27.2 yards, receiving yards per game, and a median of 19. So we can see that when he did go below, it was consistently below that 33.5. There was no crazy short spikes, even with these higher games of things like 73 and 56. His median is still 19, and he still averages below as well. Additionally, we can see last year, and keep in mind as we go through a lot of this data that this is last year. And in college football, things change tremendously from one season to the next. So this first week can be pretty volatile. But we can see that last season, he was only receiving 3.7 targets per game, and about 2 receptions. He had a very small target share of passing plays last season. Additionally, they like to run the ball a little bit more than they pass. And we can see that there were a lot of receivers before he kind of would get looks last season as well. Now, we also want to look at line comparisons. We can see on Outlier that Underdog is really the only place that you can play this under 33.5. There's another really cool site called RotoWire that gives you additional data. And we can look here and see what their projections tell us. So they tell us on those DFS pick'em sites like Underdog, we're getting a pretty high number at Underdog at 33.5. We can see other places like PrizePicks has the line set at 27.5. DraftKings has their line set at 28.5. Sleeper at 30. So with those numbers being a lot lower, it would be wise to then choose the lower for his receiving yards, just based on last year's data. We can even go a little further and look at sportsbooks. FanDuel also has their line set a lot lower at 27.5. So with that discrepancy, plus last year's data, especially those going below 6 out of 10, and his median being 19 and his average being 27.2, I would definitely take Jerron Tibbs' receiving yards lower than 33.5. All right, pick number 2. We are going to go with Rocco Becht, higher than 15.5 rushing yards. Same thing. We go to Outlier, of course, and check out some of that data from last year. And we can see here that he has cleared this in 5 straight games to close 2024, averaging 29.1 rushing yards per game and a median of 25. That includes consistent production against both mid-tier and top-tier defenses. Additionally, across his last 10, he averaging that 29.1 and that median also means that most of his results clustered well above this line, similar to what we just said with Jerron Tibbs. And it wasn't just one or two spikes. He was consistently doing this at a higher rate than the number that they're providing us for this first week of the season. Then we can kind of look at some of that usage rate as well. We can see that he's getting about 8 rush attempts per game. And he's averaging 3.8. You do the math, that's still going to put him above the line that's set for today. And then we can see even in the insights that he's exceeded 17.5 rushing yards in 5 straight games, averaging 31.2 rushing games during that time. They also like to run a little bit more than pass, which helps us out because he's going to obviously get some scrambles, plus some design QB runs throughout the game. Then we also can look over at RotoWire that I was just mentioning before. And we can see where the line's set at different DFS pick'em sites. And again, we're getting a much favorable line on Underdog for this one. We can see at PrizePicks, it's set at 17.5, DraftKings 17.5, and Sleeper 18.5. And then if we look at the sports books, again, FanDuel has it set higher as well at 17.5, which means everyone else believes that he is going to range closer to that 17. We got to take the over there, especially when we look at that data from last season. So again, we're going higher than 15.5 rushing yards for Rocco Becht. Now, before we get into that last pick, of course, we talk about building that row. One of the things that you want to do to make sure that you are building that row is taking free promos when they offer them. And right now, Betr is offering $30 free when you play just $10. Make sure to use the code DIME when you sign up. And if you do that and send me a screenshot to picksandrolldfs@gmail.com, you will get a free month in my winnable. You will then start to earn wins that we have all baseball season. Now you're going to combine this with college football and in a week, NFL. Guys, the wins will stack. You're getting a free promo from Betr. Plus, you get a free month in the winnable. It's a win-win. Just use code DIME when you sign up and send that screenshot to me at picksandrolldfs@gmail.com. All right, our last pick for today will be Daniel Highshaw, lower than 86.5 rushing yards. Let's look at the data. So we have last 5 games, he's gone below this line 5 out of 5 times. Averaging, we see that we're talking about 86.5. He averaged 39.8, and he had a median of 48. He had one pretty crazy game we can see against TCU where he went for 85 yards, but otherwise much lower production, not really even sniffing that 86.5. We can also see that last season he wasn't getting much of the rush share. He was only getting 8 rush attempts a game out of 35.2 rushing plays. He's also averaging only 4 rushing yards per attempt. We can see that today's matchup is kind of a neutral matchup. They ranked 50th in yards allowed at 139.4. But again, keep in mind that was last year's team. So do what you will with that information right now until we get more games under our belt. We can also see his longest rush was only 10.2 yards per game, and that he has failed to exceed 86.5 rushing yards in 7 straight games, averaging 44.3. Now, they do rush a lot more, but we'll see what happens today in today's game. First game of the season, see how tight it is and whether or not they have to pass more or not. Then again, we can also look at line comparison. We can see here, they just show us FanDuel at minus 114, BetGM at minus 115, then Underdog at that standard rate of 120. But we can go a little further. Same thing we were doing before. If I go to Daniel Highshaw, we can see here we're getting a different line than other DFS pick'em sites. We have PrizePicks starting at 81.5, DraftKings at 83.5, and Sleeper at 83.5 as well. But ours is at 86.5, prompting us to kind of question why so high when everyone else is a lot lower. Then we might want to take that lower, right? There's a good middle point. All right, so we have today Jerron Tibbs, lower than 33.5 receiving yards. Rocco Becht, higher than 15.5 rushing yards. And Daniel Highshaw, lower than 86.5 rushing yards. Drop your favorite college football plays for the weekend in the comments. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep building. Let's build that road.